Hello and welcome everyone to the State of Talent Acquisition 2025. I'm Jo Voland and I am joining you today from Malau country down here on a very chilly Phillip Island day. Of course, we'd love to acknowledge all of the lands that we're dialing in from today and pay our respects to elders past and present. We had 226 talent teams respond to the survey. Now, in reality, we had a lot more. It was more like 500. But of course, we can only count one response per organisation, just so when people say, what are we focused on and how well are we funded, that we're not over-representing particular organisations or industries. So we had 226 unique full complete responses. As you can see, there was actually a huge range of diversity within the size of an organisation. You've got almost 30% are from organisations of 10,000 plus. But on the other end of the spectrum, we actually had around 20% of our respondents from smaller organisations, less than 500 people. So we've got a pretty good cross-section of companies. And then we can see who completed the survey. So primarily, it was the head of the talent function or the HR leader, sometimes a senior member of the talent function. And the others you'll find are talent leaders from, say, RPOs and MSPs outsourced. So I think today, right now, what I'd like to do is introduce you to our two panelists. So Andy Brockhoff and Nicola Harrison, if you'd like to come on in and join us. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Jo. How are you? Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. Hi, Nick.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good. Now, Andy, why don't we start with you? Do you want to share a little bit about your background and your current role with Eightfold?
Sure thing. Thank you for the opportunity and great to be with you all today. I'm Andy. I've been in enterprise technology for about 20 years now, both locally and overseas. I've just recently joined Eightfold as the head of Asia Pacific. For those of you that aren't aware of Eightfold, we're a talent intelligence platform. We're AI first, and we help organisations from the hire to managing and process. So a full end-to-end talent platform.
Fabulous. And Nick, a very familiar face on the Aussie TA scene.
I'm Nick Harrison. For those of you who don't know me, I have been in the TA industry for a long time, leading functions like Kmart, Ozpost, RMIT, and most recently the last 4 or 5 years in tech around talent, internally for Monash and now out for Therefore Talent. So I'm delighted to be here. The insights are great, and please make sure that you interact with us and ask us some hard questions, but aim those to Andy. Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate
it. Indeed. Lovely. Well, let's get straight into the data. So we asked a lot of questions. This was a giant survey. I always have trouble trimming it down. I feel like every question is so important. But what we've got here is a couple of key stats from, the basics, just the ability to deliver the right talent at the right time for the business. We can see the average strength is a 7 out of 10. The effectiveness of talent strategy in at 6.4. The strength of alignment between the business strategy and the talent strategy came in at 6.5. But funding, Nicola, you're a big champion of securing funding for the talent team. 5.1, it's a little disappointing.
Oh, it's more than disappointing. It's going to be really painful for those people trying to do great work and not getting the resources that they need. There's a direct correlation here, team, between your alignment to business strategy and the way that you're articulating the talent strategy and funding. If you cannot talk to the business in a way that the business cares about in terms of the metrics and the impact that your function is having, then you're going to find your investment from the business is an uphill battle. These things can be solved. They really do require, though, that you have some leadership there who is not bogged down in the day-to-day of filling jobs, but actually really focused on being able to influence those key stakeholders who hold the purse strings.
Absolutely. And we can see one of the stats below is actually about the percentage of talent leaders carrying 0 to 3 roles per annum, was 33%. So this is something we've been tracking for a little while now. Essentially, are talent leaders focused on the horizon rather than bogged down in day-to-day delivery? So we're aiming for that number to increase.
And Joe, when you all get the report, you'll see those functions where the talent leader was carrying a really light load, they scored much higher on investment and alignment to strategy. So I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but it's a really impactful, important thing to think about doing.
And Andy, you've worked in organisations that have a talent board. So looking at this, 27% of organisations in this survey have a talent board. Can you share your experiences with the talent board?
I will, Joe. Just on the previous thing about the funding, I'd love to see in the chat as well, like where is that funding being felt? Is it more around the tech side of things, or is it like additional personnel within the TA team and function? Because it's like when I started reading, that metric was pretty broad brush, and I'm always interested to sort of double click down. In relation to talent boards, as I mentioned to you previously, I'm a fan. And I've used them at the last few companies that we've had. It really helps sort of drive that partnership and alignment between the business and the TA function. One thing I'm just always wary of, though, is sometimes people in the business can sort of treat it as a little bit of a tick the box exercise. So what I would encourage you to do is make sure that you're holding your peers and also, I guess, your customers at the end of the day as well. Hold their feet to the fire, because it's for their benefit at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it's the very last comment we actually made in the report. And by the way, the report that we're sharing after this is much bigger. It's much deeper. It has far more detail, and it goes into topics that we don't have time to explore today. But we've picked out a couple of nice ones that we thought might make for an interesting conversation. So coming back around to talent boards, a talent board is a cross-functional committee that holds shared responsibility for talent-related decisions. So strategy and oversight, typically it's not just people from HR and TA, but it's from the business units. And what we have seen is that it's the larger organizations, although what we found consistently in the report is the 5,000 to 10,000s were kind of in this real missing out. The 1,000 to 5,000 range and the 10,000 plus were consistently across all areas, the ones kind of really pushing the envelope. So it might just be that kind of awkward middle child status. For the 5 to 10,000s, but talent boards are becoming more popular. Andy, your experiences with talent boards?
Yeah, look, it kind of exactly to what you were pointing out there before, Joe. Like that sort of shared accountability and responsibility, and making sure people are all aligned. It goes back to that alignment and making sure that the function is really sort of serving that strategic purpose, right? And being an executionary function rather than anything. So I'm a big fan and you'll probably hear me talk about this a few times today, of like having, multiple hands on the murder weapon, to use a crude phrase. But, making sure that joint accountability together is really how teaming is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have some comments straight from the respondents. So I've picked out a few here. We have highlights, our talent leadership are not carrying a hiring load. That allows them to focus on TA strategy, funding approvals, exploration of AI and automation. We partner closely with finance and business leaders to educate and align on business needs and which supports informed decision-making on budget and resource planning. This ensures we're able to continue supporting strategic growth initiatives while also being sensible with cost. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better comment, really, could you? But sadly, at the other end, we have lowlights. We've got lack of funding manifests in highly manual processes affecting KPIs, siloed communication, no forecasting. It's highly stressful. It's just not a fun or proactive place to be. An interesting point I'll make, though, is a little while ago, I polled the talent community and said, if you were going for your next role, would you want a well-funded, well-run talent function who's got it all going on? Do you want a hot mess to fix? Or do you want a greenfield site? And guess what you all said? Have a guess. You all wanted the hot mess to fix. But I think the important factor here is, and I know that we are a community of problem solvers and fixers, but I think, you know, the onus is on us to make sure when we're joining these hot mess organizations that you actually have the remit and you have the funding. You know, you have the clear path to do what needs to be done to fix that hot mess. So moving along, something very interesting that we found is that talent is stepping onto the business scoreboard. So you all obviously report on your own productivity, but a quarter of talent teams are reporting on impact to business in addition to TA productivity. So examples of what they're measuring is listed on screen here. Andy, you're a revenue leader. You must be happy to see revenue lost on there.
Absolutely. No, this was something you and I were having a discussion about earlier. It actually really excites me to see this, right? Because when I'm reporting the key metrics of my business above, as a revenue leader, like seeing lost revenue per day per vacant role, like I talk about quota on the street not being serviced and the impact of that and the ramping time. So this really, you know, and that's one example, but it really showcases how much, how important it is having that alignment between the function and, you know, the business itself. And the fact that we're tying that reporting together, you know, really makes us feel like we're at two peas in the pod.
Yeah.
So it just continues, again, making sure that you're the execution part of the strategy, the growth strategy, or whatever strategy it is that you're looking to help serve with the business is trying to achieve. But really, really enthused by this. Yeah.
And Nicola, you've been part of many talent functions. What's your sort of favorite business metric?
Oh, well, that changes depending on what the business really cares about. And I think that's the piece. You know, talent boards, as we were talking about, are a great way to drive advocacy internally, but it's also a great way for you to really understand the levers internally that the business actually cares about, and stop reporting on the things they don't care about. So if you can actually articulate the metrics in a way that makes sense from a P&L perspective, you are moving or shifting the dial from the perception of you being a cost center to actually being a valuable resource internally. So I would encourage you all to truly understand the levers that matter to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'll give you two examples that I know of that are very different because they're very different organizations. The first one is there's a talent team who have delivered over $400,000 in revenue to the business just by smart use of the candidate communication. So as people apply for a role and the talent function start to communicate with candidates very early in the hiring process, they give them a specialized UTM link and a special offer for their services. And before the hiring process is even finished, they've been able to raise over $400,000 worth of revenue. So it's a pretty good case for, you know, the different kind of power that talent functions can deliver, but also a really good case for maybe diverting a little bit of that cash back into the talent function. Another completely different case would be an aged care facility who are able to track the amount of care minutes that the nursing staff gives to the patients, based on the industry standard. And this is the number of care minutes has increased because they're able to fill every shift. They don't have, any open vacant roles, people covering for each other. So that kind of improvement in care metrics is able to actually be a selling factor for them to say, if you should put your loved one here because we'll deliver more care, minutes per patient than our other peers. So these are the kind of business metrics that are really going to make business leaders start to sit up and realize how important talent delivery is. Now, transformation focused. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of transformations going on, but the three that we chose to hone in on are the shift to become a skills-based organization, the shift to talent advisory, and our focus on AI and automation across the full business, not just TA. So, Andy, is that surprising to you? The skills-based org is leading number one based on the conversations you're having?
No, it's not. I actually, and aligns with conversations I have. I think that actually the number and interest around a skills-based organisation is higher, right? From the research we've found, and also the conversations we're in. But I think a lot of the time, organisations are challenged of where to start and how to get there, right? And Nick, Joe, and I are having a conversation before about, there's almost a level of fatigue kicking into some businesses whereby, the HR as a function's going and talking about skills-based transformations, and the business's eyes are rolling into the back of their head a little bit. So, I know that there's
an overused term, is it?
I think it is. And
misunderstood, maybe?
Sorry?
Misunderstood or overused?
Misunderstood or maybe overused. And I think it's just simplifying sometimes the language. I mean, you can't simplify it more than skills-based organisations, but I like to think about it as like resources that the business needs, like what resources are coming in, what are emerging, etc. So, we're seeing a lot of this, and obviously, the challenge is for companies, like, how do you leverage technology to help drive that as well, right? So that strong focus on AI and automation, there's just so much data required and so much insight required to become a skills-based organisation and continue to offer that journey for your employees, and also, potential employees. You need to leverage technology to get there. No human alone can do it.
Yeah. And Nicola, we've seen, what do you think, 5 years maybe, the focus on skills-based org, internal mobility?
Yeah, I think, with AI, it's giving us an opportunity to maybe articulate in a different way and accelerate some of that shift. But, being able to understand the skills that are needed in detail is part of the holy grail for internal mobility, whether that you're utilizing AI or not. But it's not the only thing. Like, it requires significant cultural change, and it requires an organization to perhaps let go of some of the shackles in terms of how they think about talent and their own teams, to be able to deploy talent across an organization. And that can be quite a significant cultural shift. And I think that's one of the things that's been holding back talent functions, is being able to help a business think more holistically about what talent they need and how they deploy them across a business, as opposed to individual roles within teams. So it's not without its challenges, but certainly AI and the use of AI and the ROI potential means that we should be able to get some acceleration in these areas around cultural change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, 5 years ago, we were really kind of talking about understanding the skills that everyone across the organisation possesses, whether it's within their current role or maybe dormant skills not being utilised by the organisation for the purposes of humans, of internal mobility of people. Whereas now we have this other trend coming in and making an impact, and that is, how will roles change in the future based on the use of AI and specifically AI agents? So what tasks can be automated versus what tasks will stay and be human? So I think we have two kind of pretty big levers now, two big trends, and they're all pointing in the one direction, which is we have to understand at a granular level what skills exist in our organization from our people, but also what tasks need to be formed from the job, side of things. Andy, who in your opinion has this right? Who has, I'm seeing in the comments here very few.
I was actually reading the comments. I was a little bit distracted. And it's like, Nick, you seem to have really set off a really strong discussion here. And I really agree with it, right? How do we, that change, the cultural change and the transformation is key to make anything land. Technology is just technology, in my opinion. Probably sounds surprising for me to say something like that. But, unless people are actually adopting it and going through the transformation and using it, utilizing it to help drive that change and the outcomes that they need, this is still work to make sure that we're getting the best for our people at the end of the day. This is a human-centric challenge and a human-centric opportunity as well. Because I was looking through a couple of the comments and people are like, this is, the latest thing to help sell some HR technology. That's the healthy skepticism. I welcome those kind of bits of healthy skepticism. But fundamentally, it is a change of how businesses are going to be run and how people think about the talent they have internally. So it is a big shift, big transformation. And I agree with Nick, and I'm sorry, I was a little distracted because I was fascinated with some of the comments rolling in.
Love it.
Right, who's doing it well? Look, we've got a number of companies that have been doing it well. I think one of the use cases we've seen internally of clients of ours, Bayer, the big German pharmaceutical, does a really good job of this, and they've been a long-time partner of ours. And we've got some really good data points. I'm happy to share some of that material, Joe, some of the reference cases with you to share with the audience as well.
Last year at ATC 2024, Amy Baxendale did a really great job of kind of like breaking it down to a real granular step-by-step level, which I think the audience in the room really needed, because, there's a lot of kind of big picture discussion around it, but to see it broken down, step by step was really terrific. And I think really, enlightening for a lot of people.
Super proud to work with Arcadis, who's a project we're rolling out. Super proud to work with Amy, especially, right? She is a force of nature within herself.
Yeah.
And I love how she pushes, her own organization, but pushes ours too. So, and I love working with people like that.
Fantastic.
I guess if there's anyone in the audience who thinks that they are nailing this, volunteer yourself in chat so that we can have you come and speak to us at the next thing. Yeah,
lovely. Oh, and Gareth's just saying here, Amy's on a podcast with David Green this week. Very well-known name globally, and it's a good listen. Now, talent advisory, I think it's showing up here at 50%. So half of organisations are saying yes, we're making this. But I think when I looked at the data from last year, what we found is quite a few organisations were already there, and the majority of organisations were sort of on the move. So I'm not surprised to see that a little bit lower, because I feel like it's probably something that talent leaders feel like they have a little bit more self-control over to be able to move the dial on advisory. But obviously 49% strong focus on AI and automation. We have some really good organizational AI readiness. The skills paradox. Now, we asked a couple of questions in our survey around skills, but really for deeper data, we needed to cross-reference over to your far deeper report in this area. Do you want to walk us through?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And I'm going to have to learn to turn off that chat because it's distracting. Look, so we've done some research earlier in the year, and I think it was released in sort of Q1. But essentially, we're finding that still like 90% of HR leaders believe in skills-based practices, right? But there's a bit of a challenge too, right? Because a lot of them are not understanding, back to the point I was trying to make earlier, like how to get there, what to go about, what are the things they can do. One of the interesting data points as well that we've got highlighted there is around the 82% of employees that admitted actively looking for a new job in the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, that is a stunning statistic.
Stunning, yeah.
But it's not surprising. So I actually worked in the employee engagement space before I came to here for one of the larger employee engagement solutions. And it never ceased to amaze me or shock me about we would actually go and present a lot of the results and findings of organizations' individual scores. And, you know, the number one thing that came back from employees consistently was my organization's not investing in me and it's not investing in my career pathing, right? So that impact and that ability for people to feel sort of a little bit forgotten or left behind or even not sort of thought of, right, apart from their annual performance review or something along those lines, no, that's really challenging for people to sort of digest. Where we're sort of finding that, you know, tools like ours are powerful is they can help provide organizations an ability to sort of have a career path. As we spoke about, it would be impossible for any individual in a HR function to think about the individual career path for every person in that organization. But a lot of the tools that we have today can help drive a lot of that. So look, we are very bullish on the ability of AI to help drive some of those insights, drive some of those opportunities where people can develop and grow and all those sorts of things, and providing those internal pathways. Because without providing those pathways and that mobility, people have absolutely the right to start going around and looking at
create their own pathway outside of the organization.
Yeah, no one wants to feel like an Excel square. Right? Which is sometimes the way people can feel when things like that aren't sort of spelled out.
Now, Nicola, if you went into your business leader and said 82% of our employees are actively looking for a new role, I mean, I think I'd just about have a heart attack.
I think that is a significant oh shit moment for any C-suite member to hear that. You know, I think, well, it would be surprising to get that stat because there's not a lot of confidence sometimes internally with the confidentiality of an engagement survey. So sometimes you don't know, and that's even worse, you know, that catches you by surprise. In terms of not feeling invested in though, we are going to talk a little bit about capabilities in the talent team in the next few slides. But I think HR generally, in my observation, is one of the underperformers when it comes to actually investing in their people and taking a longer term strategic view of the skills that are needed in that function. And, you know, I think that if we are to be the custodians of change and driving a more talent-centric culture, then we need to take a bit of our own medicine and really start to double down on what is needed in our function and how do we make sure that we've got the right skills in our business.
We have some excellent stats coming up on future recruiter organizations. It's a lovely segue. Before we head there, we'll just look at the results of the poll. So yeah, 20% of the people online said we have got, you know, access to skills and tasks at a granular level. 76% said it's a gap that we need help with, and only 4% said, you know, workforce skills and tasks are not on the radar, not important to us at this time. So if we were to go back a slide, that kind of tracks. You know, we have 65% with a strong focus of shifting to be a skills-based organisation, you know, and the poll says we've got 20% that are there and 76% saying they need to get there. Now let's move along. And before we head into that big future recruiter org and skill change at a TA level, let's take a little pit stop and let's look at our talent technology. So, and by the way, I'll just remind you, keep adding into the chat, but if you have a question you would like to pose to the panel, just pop over into Q&A and ask it there and I'll read it out for you. Now, the average satisfaction strength on a scale of 1 to 10 was 4.5, where an organisation was using one of the big end-to-end enterprise talent tech stacks for both HRIS and ATS. Now, I don't think that is going to come as a shock to most people, that if you're using one of the big systems, maybe from an ATS perspective, your satisfaction ratings are a little lackluster. I don't know. Tell me in the chat, is anyone surprised that it's come in at 4.5? What we did find that when we looked at those that used one of those big end-to-end enterprise systems for a HRIS, but they paired it with a best of breed, niche, best-in-class ATS, satisfaction moved straight up to a 7 out of 10, which is really solid. Keeping in mind, obviously, some of those are rating coming in at a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. Some are coming in a little lower. This is an average. But if you have been complaining internally to say, we really need to implement a solid ATS and, implement it into our big HRIS and not have the end-to-end, and it's just been kind of anecdotal because that's what the team would prefer and that's what we've done in the past and that's what we like. Well, now you've got the data. You've actually got the data from 226 talent teams to say that you can get a 4.5 up to a 7 out of 10 gain by this integration. So this is exactly why we do this survey. It's exactly why we produce these results. So you guys have got real data and real leverage to go in and have a meaningful conversation.
Can I just comment? I can see, is it Hassana? I just commented, like the CFO rules those decisions. I think it's two parties that rule those decisions. It's the CFO and the CIO a lot of the time as well. And I must admit, I had a bit of a smile and a giggle when I first was going through this data because I've worked for both ends of the spectrums, right? And look, fundamentally, if you look to the right, that you're all going to vote with your feet. If it was up to you, you'd probably all go and buy the best-in-class applications, right? And I completely support that. As you can see there, nearly 70% of orgs are actively prioritizing HR tech investment or seriously considering it. Like, at the end of the day, that decision comes down to a cost, right? It costs more to integrate and all those sort of things. But my question to businesses is at what cost, right? You're going to get a huge amount of drop-off in people going through the application process, all those sorts of things. You might not get the right candidate because of it. So, there's I really want to help think about, because there's a whole a whole market of amazing tools out there right now in the ATS market. Like that, it's phenomenal, the technology that's out there. So we need to get better at how we justify that decision, because I think that, you'd be crazy to go just internal at the moment. Probably not surprised to hear me say that, but again, I've been, I worked at Success Factors for a long time as well. So I get both sides of the coin.
And I'm trying to be a little diplomatic by just sort of saying the big end-to-end systems, but I think we all know the big 2 or 3 that we're talking about here. Nicola, you've worked with a lot of technology over the years. 68% of organisations are prioritising the HR tech investment or seriously considering it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big number. And I think there's a lot of hype at the moment in the market around what tech can do to come and solve all of your problems. But as a lot of the audience is saying, tech on its own is never going to solve a problem. It's all about systematic cultural shift that enables tech. I think one of the challenges that I've observed in organizations is an immaturity within the talent space to articulate well thought through business cases that resonate with the CFO, with the CIO, with the COO. I have spoke at length about talent's customers are not your internal hiring managers or your candidates. They're important, they're users, they're very important to us, but your customers are the people who pay for your function. That is the C-suite. So there is opportunity here to really think critically about, what do you want the COO to say about your function? What messages are you landing with them? And how do you enable and tie your function to the success of the business? Do those things, and you won't ever worry about getting a business case up. I think just relying on the tech to solve your problems, though, that's not going to work.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit around, cost and investment being a major issue when it comes to AI adoption in a moment. But I think, most organizations out there now that have great tech that sit over the top of your big enterprise system, they've got some amazing statistics. I mean, I see them all the time, whether it's on stage or in podcasts or going through case studies. And that is usually, that technology can sometimes pay for itself within 7 months. I mean, 7 months is absolutely nothing. And the millions of dollars that we've seen from these case studies, and this is delivered, by the way, from the talent leaders in the organization, not from the technology businesses. The millions of dollars that it saved the organization. I mean, for those of you that are afraid to have the conversation, I mean, you feel like you're doing a good job for them because you're saving pennies, but you're missing out. You're missing out on the massive savings and the massive ROI that you could be driving for your business. Now I'm going to pop over into the Q&A because I can see here. Gemma says, if someone listening in wants to use this report as an influencing conversation to start some positive change, what would be a couple of starting points? I know Nicola would have some cracking advice here.
Oh, pressure.
Glad about you.
I think that the first thing I would look at is capabilities in your own function first, right? Before you start looking to try and fix skills across the organization, have a really close, hard look at what you need in your business within your team to be able to deliver not just what the business needs now, but what you know is coming. And that, I think, is really valuable. The other thing I'd use this report for is to an emotion that, we can talk about excitement and, possibilities and opportunity and all of those things. That goes so far. But another emotion that's really powerful is fear, and helping some of your C-suite see that their business is falling behind, that competitors are taking over, and that you're at risk of losing key talent is a really strong driver. So go forth and be brave with this report is what I would say. Go and scare the bejesus out of some of your C-suite.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. Right?
Look, I think that's a great use of it. I started this report when we were coming out of COVID, and everyone was like, is it tough for everyone? What's happening? What's going on for other people? And we kind of use that as a benchmarking exercise, and it's evolved heavily from there. Lisa is asking, would love to know your thoughts on the current employment hero and Seek integration issues. It's a great question. I don't feel qualified to answer. Anyone? No?
I'm nominating Andy.
I think
very kind of you, Nick. Much love. Yeah, I'm not as in depth with that to make some specific comments to it, to be honest.
I think, if the rippling news has started to die down a little bit, this has come along to give us something to
Next
focus
HR
on.
tech drama.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, moving on to the next slide here. So let's talk about talent tech and AI. So we asked, what is your HR team's approach to using AI? And what we've got here is the using it successfully and in the early stages was 65%. So we're seeing teams definitely dabbling. We've got, that typical sort of lagger group. They'll wait and see what the results are for everyone else. They're kind of sitting there. They've now moved to considering it at 29%. Very few with no plans, and even fewer with tried but failed. However, when we look at the type of AI that talent teams are using, it's not the exciting story you would like to believe it is. overwhelmingly generative AI for ads and position descriptions. Okay. All right. AI sourcing tool came in at second. The AI interview scheduler was right there in the mix, and the AI chat assistant as well. So we can kind of see from a adoption perspective, where people have been implementing. But the thing I'd like to talk about is the biggest challenge stopping you from using AI in your hiring process. And number one, Andy, cost of investment.
Thank you. And actually, just before we move off that, the most utilized kinds of AI with talent teams, I don't think that any kind of experimentation with AI is a bad thing, right? So starting small, building confidence across the function, it's exactly what people should be doing, right? I think that it'd be rare to find many organizations doing like head first diving straight in. So that's one thing. Moving to the question you asked me, Joe, I was a little surprised at the order of these. I was encouraged to see how many organizations are either using or sort of in early stages with it. But I think that the discussion I find that I'm finding myself in more and more these days isn't as much around the cost. And maybe that's because a lot of the customers we speak to are at very much the large enterprise end. But it's more around data security and privacy concerns. And I think that people are just starting to get their heads wrapped around, the use of organizations' data, to train models and all these sorts of things. And organizations are setting up their own internal AI ethics committees and all these other sort of factors and Gen AI committees. And I think it's the one I'm seeing most. And I think it's just also situational that it's while we're all going through this together, right? This is still at large scale adoption relatively new for everyone. So I think that's the one I say. I completely understand that, the cost involved, and, I'd love to understand what the specific costs are. Is it the project? Is it the tool? Is it the implementation? Is it the transformation to Nick's point a little bit earlier?
Or just the assumption that maybe
it's going to be expensive. That's right. And the potential AI bias. Yeah, look, I understand that concern. I think there's still this overarching fear factor as it relates to this technology. I know that we spend a lot of time making sure that we eliminate bias within the tool, because as soon as that happens, then the value of the tool is gone.
Yeah, I think there's some great comments coming in here about, Copilot and other AI tools for transcripts with data and privacy. So we've actually got an employment lawyer coming along who does work in this space, talking about the use of AI tools with private and data concerns at the ATC conference. He's going to be digging into other things he's starting to see, like people requesting to use an AI tool due to a disability and utilizing that AI tool as basically it is a support tool for disability, when they're sort of saying, well, your preference is to have the AI tool to dial into meetings so you don't have to attend the meetings, and then work from home and get the AI tool to kind of start augmenting that. So that, and this is literally being tested in the courts right now. So it's a very interesting and evolving space. So we'll have an employment lawyer come along and talk about that. But problem meets solution. 102 organizations, nearly half said recruiters don't spend enough time with hiring managers. More would be beneficial. And when we asked, how do you expect AI to benefit the talent function? I mean, you can see here, automating admin, more time for recruiters to business partner. Those are really the top drivers. So I think, we've got a pretty clear business case here. To automate some simple things like interview scheduling and those kind of things that, nobody ever kind of says, gee, I miss the old days where we'd email back, backwards and forwards over 7 or 8 days, trying to realign times. I mean, that's just, not what I want on my tombstone. Spent millions of hours scheduling interviews is not what I want to be the highlight of my life.
Just on that, Joe, sorry, could you go back a slide?
Yeah.
I think the one thing that stuck out to me, God, I'm struggling to speak today. that the bottom one there, the higher quality of hires, isn't that what we're really hoping for at the end of the day?
Yeah, yeah.
All those things that we're trying, all those benefits there, aren't they looking to drive that last one?
Mm. Well, I think the thing is, they're linking here, can AI directly improve the quality of hire? Whereas I think what we're saying is, if you're to use AI in the right area and free up the recruiter, you're going to improve your quality of hire because there's better business partnering, better business understanding, more time with the right people. So I think that metric would go up if I had asked the question in a different way.
But I think also, Joe, what we're looking at here is like just the hygiene admin stuff. And at the moment in the current climate, it's an easier sell internally. Boards are very concerned about governance and compliance, and there is a lot of activity around privacy and changes to regulations, and also union noise around the impact to workforce design. So at a board level, it's much easier to endorse hygiene changes.
Yeah.
We'll just move, the way we book our interviews. That's easy. Rather than address those larger shifts when it comes to like quality or the type of personalities we're bringing in, et cetera, that gets a bit more complex.
And look, that's a great segue into this next slide, which is organizational AI readiness. So moving along now from utilizing AI in TA at a larger level, AI readiness isn't a single measure. It's a combination. I mean, the three that I've chosen here is, the governance. So how ready the organization is to adopt and govern AI, the preparedness of people to actually use and understand AI. And the other one is how equipped the business is to lead and manage change at scale. So we can see here, not surprisingly, AI readiness for the organization is only at 4.4. Individual preparedness, not surprising, is higher, is a 6, where we're kind of choosing to use it in our everyday lives because we don't have those barriers stopping us like we do at work. And then from a change perspective, 4.7, but I think, so much hinges on governance and change, right? When we looked at AI strategy and mindset, does your organization have a clear AI strategy and governance framework in place? So 21% said yes, they've shifted there, and mostly larger organizations. So Andy, back to your comment earlier, those 10,000 plus organizations are just more resourced, more used to having to invest just because of the sheer size of the business.
Yeah, I also think there's another factor there that I was thinking about this earlier today, which is I speak to a lot of orgs whereby the board or the exec team are driving down into functions, go use AI to drive this, right? They can see like the benefit, well, they see from a profitability or revenue or whatever metrics they're looking to sort of achieve, they see it, right? So they're trying to get themselves set up for it and they're using it to accelerate. What I was hoping would be one of the great leveragers of AI was for some of those smaller and more agile and more nimble organizations to leverage these types of tools to move faster, right? Like Nick noted earlier again on the change management side, they don't have to go through as much change. They still do. Like
that's actually what it's not in here, Andy, but we found that the two most likely were either really large or really small.
Yeah.
And everybody else in the middle was kind of that, we're not big enough. We're not resourced with, governance and lawyers and those kind of things. And the smaller ones were able just to, act fast.
One thing I just want to jump in here, Joe. I think that as a industry, we can wait for things to happen to us. There is such an opportunity here to actually go and upskill yourself on change management, go and do a prosky course, go and do something that means that you've got some structure and some framework to support you, but go and lead the change. It's not going to go away. And I have led really large transformations and I've had change happen to me. And I much prefer the former. right?
Yeah.
If you can be the driver in
the
the
right
seat,
side of
that
change
opportunity.
impact.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it is heartening to see though that the 84% are pioneers, optimists, you know, even AI cautious are still kind of like, look, we're acting, but we're cautious. They're not skeptical and resistant. So it's reading to me that early days.
Yeah, I think just back to the slide even previous around like the individual readiness versus organizational readiness. Like individuals are always going to be willing to take on those things. You can do, back to what I was talking about, the micro learnings, the micro play. Think about when you play with ChatGPT in your own personal life or Siri the first time. You know, those are all things that we do. Businesses have more sort of, you know, risk.
Yeah. Now, I'm just checking the time here. So we've only got a few minutes left. So let's dive into Future Recruiter. So we asked talent leaders, how much do you anticipate the role of the recruiter changing over the next 5 years? 93%, very likely. So then we sort of asked, how prepared are you? How much change is there? And from the 226 teams, 11 already hire from a future recruiter PD and hiring criteria. And I'm going to share with you what their delivery rates are in a moment, and you'll see the impact. But 101 talent leaders said that they're actively evolving their PDs. 92 said they're going to continue to hire based on traditional recruiter skill sets, and 22 were just unsure if and how they may evolve. Nick, I can see you wanting to
Oh my God, what are you waiting for? You know it's going to change. It's changing. Just do it. Like,
yeah,
you have a duty to step into the future and keep evolving our skill sets if you don't want to become extinct. So this is not to cause alarm, but this is true of anything in life. If you don't keep evolving, then you are no longer of value. And so you need to think really strategically about the impact of your decision today on what the future of your function is going to be.
Yeah. And what your real responsibility is to the talent function as well. So talent functions in growth or decline. So I wanted to understand, you know, org hiring intentions. So 67%, a little bit lower than the past, plan to hire the same or more as last year. We found 80% of talent teams say they plan to grow or maintain the size of their TA team. 20%, so slightly more than last time, expect a decline, but only 2% expect a sizable decline. So I was really interested, like, you know, have the robots come and taken a recruiter's job? Well, I don't think they have, based on the AI adoption rates. Firstly, we can see that generative AI is still the top indicator, and sourcing tools, they're just kind of enabling and helping, not replacing. And what I found when I looked at this is the 20% here, or the 2% that are expecting the sizable decline. Why? It's hiring demand was down. You know, I looked at that 2% and it was like, are you adopting AI? Are you doing this? Are you doing bigger workforce shifts? So I'm not saying that AI is not going to have an impact on talent careers. I'm not saying it's not going to have an impact on the size of the team. I'm just saying so far that is not the case. So we looked at capability. So in 2024, we focused in on strategic thinking. We focused on business partnering. We focused on understanding and providing market intelligence, knowing that that wouldn't have changed all that much within 12 months. And this is kind of the average bench strength across the team of the strength of the service. This year, I wanted to ask it in a different way, given that we were a little bit worried about recruiter jobs. We asked, what percentage of the current talent acquisition team possess these capabilities? So only 41.4% of recruitment teams have great collaboration skills. Only 36.4% of the people in talent acquisition teams have the required influencing skills. Only 27.4% of people in talent teams have the AI literacy skills required. And these are some of the things that we picked out to complement what we looked at last year: strategic thinking, business partnering, understanding, providing market intelligence. Combine these 6 things we're looking at as being future recruiter skills. Anything I've missed off the list there, Nick?
No, I don't think so. But I think these capabilities underpin your ability to get investment. So that's what we're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we found when we looked at the 11 organizations that said, we've already transitioned to a future fit, future recruiter team. We've changed our PDs. We're hiring on this model. We've said goodbye to the old traditional PDs. And what we found is that they were far less likely to have a head of TA that held a personal requisition load. The head of strategy was actually focused on strategy. They were far more likely to be measuring business impact along with TA productivity. They expect significant change in the recruitment landscape in the next 5 years and feel very prepared to take it on. And then we looked at the strength of their delivery. So the ability to deliver the right talent at the right time was an 8 out of 10 rather than a 7. The effectiveness of the talent strategy was an 8 out of 10 rather than a 6. And the alignment between talent strategy and business strategy was an 8 out of 10 versus a 6. I mean, Andy, sounds like we have leaders focused on the right things in these 11 organizations.
Yeah, it does. Sorry, again, I keep getting distracted by the chat.
The chat's blowing up.
Yeah, it feels like some of my meetings.
Yeah.
Look, I think that, it's encouraging to see that organisations feel like they're pointing in the right direction and have the right intentions. The key thing is making sure that they do execute effectively against all of those things. As I said, and I'm continually encouraged by seeing the tools, but also the continuing reshaping of the function. It's a super exciting time to be in HR and especially in TA.
Yeah. And I think, if we look at the number of, or the percentage of the people in the team here, what's the outcome here? We either need to lift these skills within the existing team that we have. When people move on, we're going to replace them with future fit recruiters. But what's going to happen to these people if we don't improve the skills in this area? At some point, yes, we're going to have how many? 92 are still out of the 226 are still going to hire traditional recruiter skills in the foreseeable future. There's going to be fewer and fewer places for you to get a job if you're not focused on these skills.
Make one final point on that slide previous,
please.
Which is around the AI literacy. This is something that I had to dive into very hard myself. One of the things I think is that there's a little bit of self-learning that you need to go do yourself, right? I don't think anyone's going to roll past. And Nick, I'd love to hear your point of view and just say, this is the course you're going to take and it's going to bring you up to speed. I save on my LinkedIn every few days, here's 8 AI courses that you can do for free. They're out there and they're free. So I think, the ability to build your literacy is pretty easy.
Yeah, dive in.
Yeah, I think there's a question here from Nadine, and I'm really conscious of time, so I won't talk too much about this. But yes, absolutely, there will be individuals who are very driven to learn, and they will drive themselves. As a leader, you have 2 accountabilities here. One is to create space and time within the day for your team to actually be able to focus on development. That's always been true. It's just a shift now to what is it we're trying to upskill people on. And the second piece is to make it safe to fail. Get a champion who is prepared to give it a go and let them fail if that's what's going to be the outcome, but to share that learning and then go again with an enhanced approach.
Well, we're at our final 2 slides now. Guys, we would love to see you at the big event, ATC 2025 Impact Conference, Workforce Rewired, Roles Redefined, Value Reimagined. We are going to have a fabulous 2 days together back at Fed Square on the 28th and 29th of October. Lovely. Well, I thank you both, and I thank everyone online today for your spirited discussion and comments, and for tuning in. And have a lovely rest of your day. Bye for now.